And welcome back, peeps, from that break. We are here in the JJ Zone. Join the Journey Radio today talking about the need to make your life extraordinary. We've all encountered this principle, and I'm sure we've all seen uh, the classic film Dead Poet Society that I was citing in the monologue. If you haven't seen it, your education is woefully incomplete. You need to go get a hold of that movie. And this isn't something that this is one of those movies that you want to actually have in your collection, a part of your video library. You want to own a copy of this movie. So if you don't have it, I highly recommend you go get it. For the benefit of those who don't have it and never watched it, or those of us who haven't seen it in a long time, let's go and revisit that first lecture from Mr. Keating. I'm not going to play the whole lecture. But what I will do is play just a snippet to give us it's that last little bit where he really digs in and gets to the final point. That's where I want to get to. So let's just go and just review that really quickly. Flip it over. Let's go.
Why does the writer use these lines?
Because he's in a hurry.
No! Ding! Thank you for playing anyway. Because we are food for worms, lads. Because believe it or not, each and every one of us in this room is one day going to stop breathing, turn cold, and die. I'd like you to step forward over here and peruse some of the faces from the past. You've walked past them many times. I don't think you've really looked at them. They're not that different from you, are they? Same haircuts, full of hormones, just like you. Invincible, just like you feel. The world is their oyster. They believe they're destined for great things, just like many of you. Their eyes are full of hope, just like you. Did they wait until it was too late to make from their lives even one iota of what they were capable? Because you see, gentlemen, these boys are now fertilizing daffodils. But if you listen real close, you can hear them whisper their legacy to you. Go on, lean in. Listen. You hear it? Hear it? Seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary.
Okay, there it is. I mean, you just make your life extraordinary. We've all felt that. We all intuitively agree with that sentiment that we should make our lives extraordinary. And yet, how many of us are actually doing that? I would submit so few of us are actually doing that. And if more of us actually were on that train, a lot of the problems that we have at overcoming challenges with LDS singles life, they would just be gone, right? Because the challenges that we have, in part, are the result of the approach that we're taking to LDS singles life, the approach that we're taking towards ourselves, towards other people in our environment, in our world. It all comes from right here, peeps. I kid you not. It's all coming from right here. And once you get, what's in your head straightened out, once you get good with you on the inside, it's a lot easier for things to just flow out on the outside. Too many of us are not making the conscious choices that we need to make in order to get the results that we say we want. We're following the path of the natural man and the natural woman, which is just go with the waves, like we heard, over the break, Tears for Fears It was one of my favorite groups growing up, and I'm excited that they're coming to tour this summer in the U.S. To hype their new album. Um, I'm just I'm just excited because the last time they were on tour, I had a ticket. I was all set to see them, and they canceled. They canceled their tour because of well, let's call them family emergencies that popped up. So I was really disappointed. Here's one of my favorite bands growing up. I had a ticket, and you know, I don't criticize them for that. I understand, they had good reasons for doing what they did. I'm not criticizing them at all, but I was still disappointed that I'd never seen the band play live before, and now here, you know, there it is. So, so I'm excited that they're coming back to the U.S. this summer for tour. I just think that's fantastic. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But anyway, the song I was playing over break, the phrase that just keeps coming up with the chorus, it's your life. Don't just collide with the waves. I love that sentiment. It's your life. Don't just collide with the waves. And yet that's what most people do. They just wander around, they don't really know what they want. They're not really chasing after anything. Just kind of aimlessly, like, yeah, okay, looking for something that might come their way. And, if the waves of life kind of steer them over in this direction, then they go over in this direction. Or if it takes them back in the other direction, then they go in the other direction. I mean, there's there's nothing extraordinary about that kind of life. I think we can all agree with that. So you want to make your life extraordinary. Conscious choice is the key. Conscious choice. And it starts with an awareness of what Mr. Keating was saying in his lecture. We're food for worms, lads. There's going to come a time when, we're growing daffodils. So now is the time. Now is the time. Too many of us, Larry St. Singles, are just waiting for the blessings we want to come into our lives. And we're not taking an active role in making our lives extraordinary, making our lives inviting and enticing for those blessings that we want to come into our lives. We're looking for that person who we like, who likes us back. And that is why we have the results that we have. That is why we're wallowing in the mire. That is why we feel stagnant. That is why we're not making progress, because we're not attending to fundamentals. Fundamentals. Go back to the fundamentals of the dating journey, right? And we've talked about this time and time again. Let's go back and review. There are distinct stages to the dating journey. Each stage has its own agreement. In order to progress to any stage of the dating journey, you have to have the agreement connected with that stage. How do you get the agreement? Well, by being agreeable enough. It's the way you get any agreement, by being agreeable enough. So if you're not getting the agreement you need to be in a particular stage, you're not going to progress to that stage. And all that means is that you're not agreeable enough. Now, there's different approaches to becoming agreeable enough, right? Like you could lower your bar and say, well, okay, I'm going to get somebody who's willing to accept less so that I don't have to give more, right? I don't have to give anything more. It's one way to approach it. I don't recommend that way. I don't think that's the way to maximum happiness. I think maximum happiness is becoming your best self and looking for somebody who can complement you in becoming your best self. So I wouldn't like lower the bar necessarily. What I would do is I would raise the bar on myself. I need to come up and meet a better standard. That's what I need to do. And so, that's the approach that I recommend. And that's really what making your life extraordinary is all about. It's about looking inside yourself and raising the bar and saying, okay, how can I make my life more interesting? Because that's ultimately what all the agreements are centered around, right? It's like ultimately you're looking for like this, lifetime partner, that you want to spend your life with, right? You want somebody whose life is interesting. You don't want to share somebody's life if their life is boring. I mean, you can do that on your own. We've all been bored. It didn't take any effort. Why should I invite somebody else to get what I can get on my own? I want interesting. I want enlightening. I want something that um, is ennobling, something that lifts me, something that enlightens me, something that compliments me. I want something interesting. And so this is where I get to in the monologue. It's like, this is what it means to make your life extraordinary. You are making yourself more attractive. You're making yourself more agreeable to another person so that you can get the agreement you need to make the progress you need in your dating journey and move forward towards your desired blessings. And this isn't about like making anybody, because ultimately, like I said in the monologue, it's like people, if you're continually getting rejected, it's not their problem, it's yours. The problem is with you and what you're presenting to them. Because most people are just responding to what you have chosen to present to them. So if you don't like the feedback you're getting as far as like the results you're getting in your dating journey, why don't you change your approach? Why don't you go back to fundamentals and say, okay, I need to become more agreeable. And one of the best ways to do that, make your life extraordinary. Because here's the thing, when you live an extraordinary life, you live a life that's interesting, you're not relying on some outward event in order for you to be happy, in order for you to get maximum joy in life, because you're living your life. You're not waiting for somebody else to come in your life before you start living it. You're living it now. And that life is infinitely much more attractive than the life many LDS singles are living, who, I mean, what do you do with yourself? Like when you have time that you can choose, all of us have to work. We gotta, pay bills and whatnot. But when you got time that you're not, I mean, what do you do with that time? Right? What are you doing with the time that you choose to use? What are you doing with that time? All the people who are in consumption mode, they're playing video games, they're binge watching, movies or streaming TV or whatever it is, um, the common activities that are just based in consumption. They're not producing anything. There's nothing interesting about that life. So if you really want to make your life interesting, you got to get out of consumption mode and start getting into production mode. Start producing things. Start doing things that are interesting, that other people would find interesting. And as I said in the monologue, focus more on what you think an interesting life is. And yeah, it's not a hard exercise. We're coming to a break right now. So let's go ahead and take that break. When we come back on the other side of the break, I want to get into like the nitty gritty, like, because we've already talked at like the 30,000 foot level. Let's land the plane, and because we're on the tarmac, we're where the rubber meets the road. Let's talk on that level after the break about how we actually go about making our lives extraordinary. How do you make your life interesting? Did you become more attractive and make more progress in your dating journey? We'll discuss the practical realities of that after the break. See you there on the other side.